They made me care for Grandma for 10 years, then cut me out of the will. That's not the kind of thing you say out loud at brunch with old coworkers. But it's the truth. And after everything, I've stopped sugarcoating the truth. I used to have a different life. A real one. I was living in Chicago, working as a graphic designer for a decent agency. I had a small apartment with brick walls and too many plants. I had friends, a boyfriend who liked overpriced coffee, and dreams that felt achievable. Then the call came. Grandma Rose had a stroke. Not the first, but a bad one. My Aunt Karen called me with that voice, the kind that sounds helpful but comes wrapped in guilt like an old casserole dish. You're the only one who can help, Jasper. You work from home anyway, and you know how much she loved you when you were little. They made it sound like a temporary arrangement. A few months, maybe. A year at most. I was 31. I told my boss I needed some time, packed a few bags, and drove from Chicago back to the same sleepy Ohio town I had clawed my way out 10 years earlier. Grandma Rose's house still smelled like cinnamon and books, the way it always had. It was small, filled with mismatched furniture and framed photos of people who'd either died or stopped calling. She was in a hospital bed in the living room when I arrived. Her hair was thinner, her skin like paper, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Jazzy," she said, with a crooked smile. "You always had good timing." I cried in the car later, not from sadness, from terror. I had no idea what I was doing. The first weeks were a crash course in diapers, pill schedules, and feeding someone who forgot halfway through a spoonful what a spoon was. I Googled how to avoid killing your grandmother more times than I'd like to admit. The rest of the family? They visited once a month, sometimes less. They brought store-bought cookies and loud voices and left me with a mountain of dishes and Grandma overstimulated into exhaustion. "Jasper's so good at this," Aunt Karen would say, sipping her herbal tea like she wasn't avoiding every hard moment. "You were always the sensitive one." They never offered money, or time, or relief. I told myself it was okay, that I was doing something meaningful, that someone had to show up. But as the months blurred into years, the weight started sinking in. I stopped freelancing. I couldn't meet deadlines between bathroom runs and blood pressure checks. My boyfriend in Chicago stopped texting. My friends stopped calling. I was just gone. Gone from the world I built. Replaced with adult diapers and reruns of Murder, she wrote. There were moments of beauty, though. Grandma had good days, when she was sharp and funny and told me stories about being a teacher in the 60s. About how she punched a principal once for calling a girl dumb. "You'd have liked me back then," she'd say, sipping lukewarm tea. I had more fire, less bones. I always liked her. Even when I hated my life, I never hated her. Sometimes I wondered, did I agree to this out of love, or was it just guilt? Maybe I felt like I owed her something. Maybe I thought I could be some kind of martyr. Or maybe I just didn't know how to say no. Mom died when I was 16. Cancer. Grandma Rose practically raised me after that. She came to my art shows, taught me how to make blueberry pancakes, and told me every birthday that I was meant for more. I guess more turned out to be adult diapers and mashed peas. Still, I stayed. Not out of obligation, not entirely. Somewhere in the sleepless nights and awkward sponge baths, I found something almost holy in the routine. Something real. I stopped waiting for the family to thank me, or visit more, or do anything besides tag me in old photos with captions like #FamilyFirst. I just focused on Grandma, on making her laugh, on keeping her comfortable, on making it count. And when she started to fade, really fade, she grabbed my wrist one night and said, "When I go, you tell the truth, Jazzy. Don't let them twist it. Promise me." I promised. I didn't know what she meant, not really. But I would find out. Sooner than I expected. Holidays in Grandma's house used to mean warmth. The smell of cinnamon rolls, a fire crackling in the hearth, and her humming along to old Christmas records. Now, they meant chaos, and a very specific kind of performance. Thanksgiving was the worst. Aunt Karen showed up with her trademark pinched smile and a Tupperware of dry stuffing, just in case Jasper didn't have time to cook. She wore a chunky necklace that clacked every time she turned her head to judge me. "You look tired," she said, "the way people say you look like crap but with fake concern. Are you eating okay? You've really let yourself go." "Thanks, Karen. Happy Thanksgiving to you too," I muttered, holding the door open. Behind her was Brian, my cousin. Dragging his feet like helping carry groceries was a personal attack. "Yo, Jas," he said, giving me a weak fist bump. Still doing the Florence Nightingale thing, huh? That's noble. He worked in IT, allegedly. Mostly, I just saw him tweet about crypto and complain about people who had to work real jobs. He claimed to call Grandma weekly. Once, I checked the phone logs. The last call was 8 months ago. A 36-second voicemail that started with "Hey Grandma" and ended with "Okay, talk soon." Megan came fashionably late, as usual. Designer boots, hair blown out, makeup perfect. She burst through the door like a celebrity greeting fans. "Grammy," she squealed, rushing to the living room to snap a selfie beside Grandma's hospital bed. "Say hi to my followers." Grandma blinked slowly, confused. She was having a foggy day. Megan didn't seem to notice, or care. The dining table, which I spent hours setting and decorating, turned into a photo booth. Megan posed with the turkey store-bought. Karen arranged plates like she was being judged by a magazine editor, and Brian asked if we had any real drinks. They brought presents, sure. A clearance blanket, a singing Christmas card, a mug that said "World's Best Grandma in Comic Sans." No one brought groceries. No one offered to help clean or cook or change Grandma's bedding after she had a small accident during dessert. "I think it's lovely what you're doing," Karen said, swirling her wine. "Really shows your character." She said it the way someone might describe a charity case. Not once did she offer to take a shift, or cover a week, or even stay the night. "I mean, you never really settled down anyway, right?" She continued, smiling. "So you were the obvious choice. Obvious choice. Like I was the spare. The leftover. The one who didn't have a real life to interrupt." I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. Brian played with his phone. Megan edited videos of herself feeding Grandma mashed sweet potatoes with a caption about family love. They were here for show, for content, for a pat on the back without doing the work. Later that evening, after they left with their dishes and leftovers and hugs full of obligation, I found Grandma half asleep, frowning. "They're good kids," she whispered. I kissed her forehead. "Sure they are, Gran." But something inside me was shifting. I used to think I was the lucky one, the one who got to be here for her final years, to learn from her, to love her fully. But that night, as I scrubbed dried gravy off the floor and threw out Megan's empty Starbucks cups, I felt something new simmering beneath the grief and exhaustion. Anger, not rage, not yet, just a slow, bitter heat creeping up my spine. They pitied me, but I was the one wiping drool off the chin of the woman who raised half of them. I was the one giving her dignity when her body was failing her. I was the one who stayed, and all they saw was someone who didn't have better options. I did have better options. I just made a choice they didn't understand and didn't respect. That night, I sat by the bed, holding Grandma's hand while she slept. Her fingers were cold, bones wrapped in parchment skin. "I'm not sure they deserve you," I whispered. Maybe I was talking to her. Maybe I was talking to myself. The first snow came early that year, fat, lazy flakes drifting past Grandma's bedroom window like feathers. She didn't notice them. She was sleeping more, eating less. Most days she didn't remember my name until I reminded her. Some days she called me Tommy, her late husband. Other days she just looked at me with wide, frightened eyes, as if I were a stranger who wandered in to watch her die. "This is normal," Nurse Tina said, her voice low and kind. "You're doing everything right." She visited once a week, bringing fresh gloves, changing dressings, adjusting meds. She always made a point of praising me, to Grandma, out loud. "You're lucky to have this one," she'd say, squeezing my shoulder. "Not many would give what he's given." Grandma would nod faintly, sometimes smile. But she didn't always understand. Miss Ellen came by with soup every Thursday, her scarf flapping in the cold wind like a flag. She'd knock twice, then let herself in with a sing-song "Hello, darlings." "You holding up okay, Jasper?" she'd ask, peering at me over her fogged-up glasses. I brought split pea. Don't argue. She was 82, sharp as a tack, and somehow still more mobile than me after a long night of cleaning bedpans and changing soaked sheets. "I remember when she used to bake pies every Sunday," she said once, watching Grandma sleep. "Now look at us. We start and end in diapers, don't we?" Sometimes I laughed. Sometimes I didn't have the strength. That winter blurred into itself. A cycle of pill alarms, soft music, whispered prayers, and the faint beeping of oxygen monitors. I stopped noticing the days of the week. I stopped caring what my old friends were posting online. I stopped wondering what I'd be doing if I hadn't said yes 10 years ago. It was just us. Me and Grandma. and time slipping out from under us like melting ice. She had lucid moments, little flickers. One afternoon, while I helped her sit up to sip broth, she reached for my wrist. "Jasper," she said clearly. "I'm here, Gran. Do you remember the sewing room? Of course. There's a box, letters, old ones, and a little flash drive. You take them when... if..." Her voice trailed off. "If what?" She looked at me, eyes wet and glassy. "If they forget who you are." I didn't know what she meant, but I nodded. "Okay, I'll find it." She closed her eyes and leaned against me. I sang to her softly, an old church hymn I didn't even believe in. I just wanted her to feel safe. That night, she woke up crying. She didn't know where she was. She begged me to take her home. "This is your home," I whispered, rubbing her back. She clawed at the blankets like they were burning her. "I want my mother," she said. So I sat on the floor beside her and told her stories until her breathing evened out. Until she fell asleep. Until the silence settled like frost on my shoulders. On the last day, the snow was thick and quiet. I knew before I touched her that she was leaving. Her eyes were half-lidded, unfocused. Her breaths were thin and slow, like they had to fight to stay. I climbed into the bed behind her and wrapped my arms around her frail frame. She smelled like lavender lotion and winter sheets. Her fingers twitched against mine. "I love you," I whispered into her silver hair. She didn't reply, but I felt her hand tighten just slightly. And then, nothing. No drama, no gasp, just stillness. A long, endless stillness that settled in the room like the final note of a lullaby. I didn't cry, not then. I just lay there, holding her until the warmth left her body. Until the sun started to rise. Until Miss Ellen came by and knocked, and then let herself in and found us like that. "Oh, Jasper," she said softly. I couldn't speak. There's a kind of grief that's too full for tears. It presses down like snow on a roof, silent, heavy, waiting. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and new carpet, too clean, too impersonal, like it didn't want to remember anyone who'd ever sat there crying. We all sat in a half circle of stiff leather chairs, dressed like it was a wedding reception instead of a post-mortem. Aunt Karen wore pearls and a dramatic black shawl. Megan looked like she stepped off the cover of a fashion magazine. Heels, lashes, even a tasteful little hat. Brian wore a hoodie under a blazer. Classic. I was in a wrinkled dress shirt and slacks that hadn't fit right since my 30s. I hadn't slept in 2 days. Mr. Lambert, the lawyer, cleared his throat. He was a thin man with long fingers and a voice like NPR on low volume. He opened the manila folder slowly like it might bite. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "As you know, Rose Evelyn Whitaker left a legally binding last will and testament, witnessed and notarized, with instructions for me to read it in full today." Karen gave a little sniff and patted her eye with a monogrammed handkerchief. I don't know why. She hadn't seen Grandma more than once a year since 2015. Lambert adjusted his glasses. "To my beloved granddaughter Megan," he began, "I leave my jewelry collection and the family heirloom china set, which she always admired." Megan smiled smugly and whispered something to her boyfriend, who was not invited but came anyway. "To my nephew Brian," Lambert continued, "I leave my husband's coin collection and $10,000 to support his efforts in starting his tech business." Brian looked up from his phone long enough to nod and say, "Cool." "To my daughter Karen," the lawyer said, and paused slightly, "I leave the house at 48 Maple Lane, its contents, and the remaining balance of my estate, including my savings and pension." Karen gasped dramatically. "Oh, Mother," she breathed, as if this were some long-deserved validation. And then, the moment. "And to my grandson Jasper Whitaker," Lambert said, looking down at the page with an unreadable expression, "I leave the following note." He unfolded a smaller piece of paper, typed and signed. "Jasper has given me the greatest gift of all, his time, care, and love. He does not require financial compensation, for he already received something beyond measure, 10 precious years by my side. Let this note serve as my deepest gratitude." I felt the words hit like a slap made of ice. No money, no house, no token of thanks, just a note. A poetic slap on the back. The room was dead silent. And then I heard it, a soft, awkward chuckle from Brian. Karen turned toward me and smiled in that tight-lipped way she always had when she thought she was being gracious. "Well, sweetheart, I suppose now you can finally go live your life. You know, whatever that means these days." Megan didn't even look at me. She was already texting someone, probably updating her Instagram followers from the elevator. I sat there frozen, not angry, not yet, just hollow. After everything. After 10 years of wiping drool and missed holidays and learning how to give sponge baths and read bad handwriting on prescription bottles, this was it. She must have thought you were all set, Brian offered with a shrug. Like spiritually or whatever. Maybe she figured you didn't want anything, Karen said gently, her voice slick with sugar. You're such a free soul. I stood. I couldn't breathe in there anymore. The lobby of the building was a blur of marble floors and floral arrangements. I leaned against the wall and stared at nothing. It wasn't the money. Not really. It was the erasure. The way 10 years of my life had been rewritten into a footnote. How they all looked at me like a pet that had outlived its purpose. Mr. Lambert found me a few minutes later. He handed me a small padded envelope. She left this with me too, told me to give it to you privately after the reading. I took it without a word. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I looked out the big glass window into the gray Ohio afternoon. This wasn't justice. This wasn't peace. This was the start of something else. The house was quiet in that way only a house that used to be full can be. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a memory trying to stand up and walk again. I stood in Grandma's room, still not fully able to call it mine. The air was stale with old perfume and a hint of rubbing alcohol. Her bed was perfectly made, the kind of thing she'd have insisted on even in her final days. I didn't know why I came back. Maybe I wanted to scream. Or maybe I was just afraid to go anywhere else. Then I remembered. The box. She'd mentioned it the week before she died, her voice thin and far away. If they betray you, look in the cedar chest, bottom drawer. You'll know what to do. At the time, I thought it was just another of her fading thoughts, like when she asked if my mother was coming for dinner, even though she'd been gone for a decade. But now, I dropped to my knees beside the old cedar chest at the foot of her bed and pulled open the drawer. Under yellowed linens and some old birthday cards, I found it, a small cardboard box, sealed with one piece of floral tape. Inside was a flash drive, taped to an index card with Grandma's handwriting, "Play this only if they betrayed you." I stared at it for a long time. My fingers were shaking when I pulled my laptop from the backpack I'd barely unpacked since the funeral. The screen flickered on. I plugged in the drive. A single video file appeared. For Jasper. I clicked it. The screen showed her sitting in the old armchair by the window, a soft shawl over her shoulders, her hair neatly brushed. She looked tired but calm, like she knew exactly what she was doing. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. Her voice nearly broke me. I hadn't heard it in days, but it came back like a flood, warm, familiar, sharp in the way only she could be. "If you're watching this," she said, "then they did what I always feared they might." She sighed and looked away for a second, like collecting herself. "I wanted to believe they'd do the right thing, that your Aunt Karen would grow a conscience, that Megan would find something deeper than her reflection, that Brian would, well, do anything real. But they didn't. And I'm sorry." My eyes burned. My chest tightened. "You were the only one who ever showed up, day after day. You gave up your whole life to care for me. Not because you wanted something, but because you have the biggest heart I've ever known." She leaned forward, and I could see the glint in her eyes, that spark she still had, even near the end. "You were more of a son to me than anyone else ever was. Not by blood, by soul." My throat tightened. "I let them talk me out of changing the will. They said it would cause drama, said you were fine without it, that you wouldn't mind. But I should have known better. I should have fought harder for you." She shook her head slowly. "So if they did what I think they did, take everything and leave you nothing, then this is your proof, that you mattered, that you were loved, and that I knew the truth, even if I didn't sign my name to it the right way." The screen started to dim, like the sun setting behind her eyes. "I hope you find a way to forgive me, and I hope you find your life again, because the world doesn't deserve to have you hiding in this house forever. Go, live. And don't let them take anything else from you." She smiled softly, and for a second, I saw the woman who used to read me stories at night. "I love you, Jasper. Always did. Always will." The screen went black. I didn't cry. I just sat there, laptop on my knees, the only sound in the house the quiet hum of a hard drive cooling down, like it too had said all it needed to say. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The house was quiet again, but something inside me wasn't. It was as if her voice had cracked open a vault in my chest and poured fire inside. I watched the video again. curled on the edge of my childhood bed, now my room again, though I never meant for it to be. The glow of the laptop screen painted the walls in shifting shadows as Grandma's voice filled the room one more time. This time, I paid attention to every word. Toward the end, right before the video faded, she'd added something almost offhandedly, like it was just another grocery list item. I left you the keys, Jasper, the real ones, to the truth. You'll find them where I always kept the Christmas letters. And the paper, the one they didn't want filed, it's folded behind the family Bible. I sat up straight. The Christmas letters. That meant the old drawer in the dining room buffet, where she kept the cards from everyone, even the ones with nothing but printed signatures and coupons for car washes. She'd kept them all, even the year Brian sent one with a meme on it instead of a photo. Still thoughtful, she'd said with a soft shrug. I walked downstairs barefoot. The kitchen tile shocked me awake, cold even in the early spring warmth. It was 2:37 a.m. The light above the sink buzzed to life. I poured myself a glass of water, my hands trembling. I wasn't just shaken. I was on the edge of something I hadn't felt in years. Conviction. It had dulled slowly, eroded over the decade by spoons of oatmeal, adult diapers, lukewarm casseroles, and the smug pity of a family that never lifted a finger. I'd let it drain from me, piece by piece, choice by choice, until all that remained was routine. But her words had changed that. I opened the dining room drawer. There they were. Stacks of cards and old envelopes tied with faded green ribbon. I flipped through them, heart pounding. And tucked near the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper like a fragile heirloom, was a small brass key. The kind that didn't belong to any door in this house. And folded beside it, a small weathered envelope. My name on it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, creased and soft at the corners. A new will. Unsigned, undated, but detailed, and in her handwriting. Everything left to me. The house, the small savings account, her jewelry, even the royalties from her teaching books that still sold online. And a note scribbled in the margin. They threatened to take you away from me, said I was unfit. I signed what they wanted, but this is the truth. I clutched the paper to my chest and backed away from the drawer like it might explode. I stood in the kitchen staring at the fridge, the magnets, the photo of us from Christmas 2 years ago. Me in an ugly sweater, her laughing mid-sentence. They lied. They bullied her. They rewrote the ending of our story while I sat beside her bed, singing lullabies to a woman who forgot her own name but never mine. And I let them. That realization hurt more than the betrayal. But not anymore. Not this time. I took the document upstairs, laid it on my desk like sacred scripture, and started typing. Everything. A letter to the lawyer. Notes for a video. A plan. 10 years of silence boiled over into sentences. Paragraphs. Purpose. I wouldn't stay quiet. Not for their comfort. Not for their reputations. This wasn't just about money. Or fairness. It was about truth. It was about her. And it was finally about me. The courthouse smelled like old leather and nervous sweat. I sat on a hard wooden bench, my lawyer, Erin, whispering last-minute reminders in my ear. She was young but fierce, with sharp eyes that didn't miss a thing. Exactly what I needed against the mountain of silence and smiles I was up against. The family showed up in their Sunday best, but their eyes darted like guilty kids caught stealing cookies. Karen's perfect smile didn't reach her eyes. Brian tapped his foot, impatient and annoyed. Megan kept checking her phone, probably live-streaming the whole disaster. Judge Miller entered, his gray hair and calm demeanor making the room feel like a pressure cooker about to blow. "Let's begin," he said, voice steady. Erin stood first, laying out our case with a confident, clear voice. "We have evidence showing the last will read in Mr. Jasper's grandmother's estate was signed under undue influence and duress," she said. "We will show that Mrs. Rose was manipulated by certain family members to change her will, cutting Mr. Jasper out despite his years of care." The video played first. Grandma's message, her eyes clear, her voice steady, revealing family's lies and her true intentions. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Next came the letters, old Christmas cards with notes, and the unsigned will found hidden behind the Bible. Erin pointed out the difference between the signatures. Handwriting experts testified. Then came the witnesses. Miss Ellen, the neighbor, a tiny woman with a voice soft as a breeze, took the stand. "I saw how Jasper cared for Rose," she said, clutching her handbag. "But I also saw the others come and go, only for photos and small gifts. They never stayed the night, never helped with the hard parts. The social worker, Tina, who visited weekly, added, Jasper's dedication was exceptional. The others often made excuses not to be involved. The family tried to deny it all. Karen's voice cracked as she accused me of playing the victim. Brian argued the old will was valid, that Grandma knew what she was doing. But the proof was solid. Judge Miller listened intently, asking questions only Aaron anticipated. After hours of testimony, the room fell silent as the judge prepared to rule. In light of the evidence presented, Judge Miller said slowly, this court finds that the will read previously was executed under undue influence. Therefore, it is partially invalidated. A murmur spread. The estate shall be divided as follows. Jasper shall receive the house, savings, and personal effects as per the unsigned will. The remainder will be shared among the other heirs. I felt the weight lift off my chest. It wasn't a total victory, but it was justice. Outside the courthouse, the family huddled, whispering fiercely. Karen's eyes met mine for a moment, filled with shock, maybe regret. Brian's jaw was clenched. Megan's phone dropped from her hand as if she realized her perfect image had shattered. Aaron put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You did good, she said. I nodded, looking up at the sky. It was cloudy but bright, like a new chapter, hard-earned and real. For the first time in a decade, I felt free. They made me care for Grandma for 10 years, then cut me out of the will. But now, standing in her old house, I finally felt some peace. The judge's decision had given me the house and a decent chunk of savings. Not the entire fortune, but enough to close that painful chapter. The rest of the family? They vanished like shadows at sunset. No calls, no visits, not even a message pretending to care. I wandered through Grandma Rose's living room, fingers tracing the cracked leather armchair where she used to sit, humming softly to herself. This was her sanctuary, and now it was mine, a place full of memories, love, and hard-earned truths. Later that day, I met Tina, the nurse who had cared for Grandma on the tougher days, at a small cafe nearby. She smiled warmly when she saw me. How are you holding up? She asked, stirring her coffee. Honestly, relieved. But not victorious, I said. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about making sure Grandma's voice was heard, that she wasn't forgotten or used. Tina nodded. You gave her dignity. That's something no will can measure. I looked out the window at the quiet street. For years, I'd felt invisible to my family, like just the guy who'd take care of Grandma so they wouldn't have to. Now, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the keeper of her story, her legacy. The weight of betrayal still lingered, but it was lighter now, replaced by something like hope. I had my own life again, messy, imperfect, but mine. As I sipped my coffee, I realized the fight wasn't just for what Grandma left behind. It was for the respect she deserved, and for the respect I finally gave myself. They made me care for Grandma for 10 years, then cut me out of the will. But after everything, I realized she never truly left me out. She just made sure I got what really mattered. The house, once quiet and filled with memories of pain and sacrifice, had transformed. With the money from the settlement and some help from the community, I turned it into a small care center for the elderly. I named it Rose's House, a tribute to the woman who taught me the meaning of patience, kindness, and strength. Every morning I unlocked the doors and watched as familiar faces arrived. Old Mr. Jenkins with his crooked smile, Mrs. Delaney who loved to knit, and even Miss Ellen, the neighbor who once brought Grandma soup and good stories. The walls echoed with laughter and soft conversations. The air smelled of fresh coffee and the quiet hum of comfort. I often shared Grandma Rose's story with the visitors and volunteers. How she was more than just a woman who needed care. She was a fighter, a teacher, a heart that kept beating for everyone around her. And how I had learned from her, even when I thought the world had turned its back on me. One rainy evening, after everyone had left, I sat alone in the small office upstairs. I pulled out the flash drive Grandma had left me, the one I'd watched countless times during the hardest moments. I clicked play again, letting her calm, familiar voice fill the room. She smiled gently on the screen, her eyes sparkling with that same stubborn kindness I remembered so well. You were never alone, Jasper, she said softly. Not really. You were my son in every way that counts. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me that no amount of money or legal victories could buy. That night, I locked up Rose's house and stepped outside to the small garden I'd planted in her honor. Under the glow of the porch light stood a simple memorial plaque with her name engraved. I touched the cool metal and whispered, "Thank you, Grandma." She didn't leave me out of the will. She just made sure I got what really mattered.